What's happening? Okay, just making sure. Sure, we're good. We got like 5. We're gonna wait like 5 minutes. Yeah, that's right. We're gonna wait like 5 minutes here. Give me 1 second. We're just gonna chill out and wait and see if anybody else joins. But thank you for whoever's joining us tonight. Kind of a last minute deal. I knew personally that I was gonna do a show tonight, but I think that like when I pre-post it super early, like people it gets in their brain, but then all of a sudden it just kind of goes away because obviously there's all this stuff going on. So I figured, yeah, 15-20 minutes before we start, we'll just we'll throw up a link and see who all joins us. But if you're in Minnesota right now, I promise you guys something right now. This weather is about to rock us, especially if you're in southern Minnesota. You guys got some serious weather. Now, if you're up in Brainerd, right now back home, it's not even bad yet. I think we only got a couple inches of snow. So just one of them deals. Tonight, basically what we're going to do, we're going to be talking a lot about how do you get better at bass fishing. Kind of my insight on like how do you actually get better and how do you know you're actually getting better? Because it's extremely hard to do on your own. I would say this much. For me personally, I made the biggest mistake when I first started bassing, and I thought that I could just figure everything out on my own. And so I spent a vast majority, I would say a very vast majority of my time, I spent fishing solo and trying to figure stuff out on my own, which I think was like enormous mistake, especially being what we did last season, just this last season. Anyways, so I'll talk a little bit about that. We're gonna give it until 8:05, and then I'll get into it. As far as stuff goes, though, I will say this much, man. I will say this much. I think that right now, if you're in the buying mode, Tackle Warehouse, between Tackle Warehouse and Thorn Brothers, dude, there are so many good deals right now. And if you guys are in the market for tackle, you guys are in luck because there is just so much stuff up on the horizon right now for sale that I would say you are pretty much crazy if you don't jump on some of these deals. So much stuff is 40 to 70% off right now. And I would say that, you know, when I look at some of these, some of the links and stuff like that, like I was telling you guys the other night, was it last night? Yeah. Last night we had a bunch of line on sale. I mean, if you're using Seagar and Vizex, even Seagar and Vizex is the deal. I was checking that out, bro. So if you right now you could get 1,000-yard spool of 20-pound for $96. Come on. Like, how can you compete with that? That's such a good price. Oh no. I made a mistake. I accidentally put this on my personal page. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to change this. Is anybody watching on here? Looks like we got one person. Ryan Schaefer. Bro, go on my business page. Go on Sam Martin Fishing on my business page. This is a mistake. I accidentally put it. I'm such a bad what you call it? Host of a show, I guess. I need a new. Where's my co-host Loki at? I think he's sleeping. He's passed out. He passed out on me, bro. Come on. All right. Anyways, though, I would say that we got like a ton of really good deals online right now for tackle. And if you are in the buying market, bro, get on it. Get on it like right away. Before all this stuff sells out, because right now it looks like they have almost every single pound test available in dang near any size spool that you want. So, dude, check this out. 10-pound test Seagar and Vizex, 200-yard spool, $17.49. You save $12. I can't believe, one of the things that I can't believe right now is that when I'm looking at some of the pricing, it definitely gone up. 10-pound fluorocarbon, $30 freaking dollars. 20-pound fluorocarbon, $40.50. What is going on with that, bro? That is expensive. Now, I'll tell you guys something, and we can fact check this if I'm right, but I'm fairly certain that like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I mean, I want to say you could get a pound or you could get a 10-pound test, 200-yard spool fluorocarbon for like $18, maybe $20. So it has gone up easily $10 in the last few years. That is a major problem, and I'm not happy about it. But so basically, right now we're going backwards into 2018 pricing, and you guys can get that right now at Tackle Warehouse. But go on Tackle Warehouse. This is not an affiliation. I'm not linked to them. I don't have anything to do with them. And check out some of the deals. Another deal too that I was going to tell you guys about that I totally spaced it was Shimano Mastiff, dude. So Shimano Mastiff for a 200-yard spool is $12 freaking dollars. Let's go. $12, bro. That is the deal. I'm sorry, but you're not going to get, I might even order some of it. I've used it once or twice for leader line when I was in a guy's boat, and I thought that I thought it was pretty decent stuff. Not like the first stuff that I would pick, but for $10, $10 for a 200-yard spool, I don't know, man. I think that that's a really good deal. And I would guess if you're a Power Pro guy, you would like this stuff most likely. So Shimano actually, now I can't remember how this goes. I can't remember if Shimano owns Power Pro. Somehow though, Shimano, Power Pro, and Loomis is all linked into one. And I would assume that this fluorocarbon is going to be just as good as the Power Pro braided line. I know they're not the same, but I'm just saying quality wise and the companies being what they stand for, I would assume that it's going to be pretty good, but who actually really knows, right? So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to get started. Okay, so I'll tell you guys this much right now. One of the biggest things that I learned, and how do you get better at bass fishing? One of the biggest things that I learned when I first started bass fishing, and I didn't learn this until later on, but when I first started bass fishing, I tried to figure it all out on my own. Guys, I went out by myself for hours and hours and hours and hours. And by that, I mean, I should say days and days and days I was out there fishing by myself. And one of the biggest things I think that you can fall into a trap is not getting any type of negative feedback by what you're doing. Because if you think about it, when we're out fishing every single day, yes, we do get immediate feedback as far as outcome goes, right? Like right away, you know, on the very first cast if that bait is no good or not. Or if you catch something on this specific bait, that is positive feedback. Boom, it goes in your brain, good to go. Now, I would say this much. Within bass fishing, when we're out fishing, you can do the wrong shit and still catch them. That's very evident, and I've seen that. I mean, I had a guy last year that I fished with pretty frequently. That's very, very green. That's very green when it comes to fishing. And he fished with me pretty frequently. We spent a lot of time in the boat together. And by watching what he was doing, I would say that it kind of made me reminisce back when I first started bassing and being like, oh man, I wish, now that I'm thinking about it, I wish that I would have gotten the boat with more people. So if I could preface this, you know, you can get better at bass fishing by spending more time in the boat with other people. And I know that goes without saying, but I would say this much, that if you're out with other people that are really good frequently, you can pick up more from them than you can going out, like watching a YouTube video, going out on your own and trying to push that. It's just not it's not the best way, because again, you won't know if you're doing the techniques right. You won't know some of the nuances of the techniques and all that good stuff. So I think that spending time in the boat with somebody that has an ample amount of experience as opposed to you is going to be the biggest factor. Now, I would preface this with the idea that when you go out with that other person, you're going to be a little bit overwhelmed, because there's going to be some times where they outfish you, right? There's going to be some times where they kick your ass from, the front of the boat, and you're going to watch, and it's not going to be as fun because you're going to feel like you catch more fish going by yourself than if you go with that individual, right? And the biggest thing, my biggest feedback to those guys that feel that way is when you go out with these guys that are going to be better than you, the biggest thing that you need to do is just say, this isn't really a catching day. This is a day where I can spend time with this guy and actually learn what I'm doing. I got a buddy of mine who I go largemouth fishing with quite a bit. And actually this year we didn't really go largemouth fishing a ton. The dude was busy with work. But anyways, I got a buddy back home that I largemouth fish with quite a bit that's milestones ahead of me as far as skill level goes, as far as the understanding just technique and situations and stuff like that. Dude is milestones ahead of me. He's way better at it than me. And when he goes out with me, he kicks my ass without a doubt, kicks my ass and makes me eat my lunch every time we go out. And dude even gives me the front of the freaking boat too. Gives me the front of the boat. We'll go flipping, and he will out flip me like 1-5 or 5-1, whatever. He will out flip me 5-1, and I know that that's going to happen before I even get in the boat. So I just mentally prepare myself for defeat in that avenue, in that I am more trying to pay attention to what it is that he's doing and why he's doing it. And I ask him a shitload of questions too. That is probably the biggest part of this, is just swallowing your ego, getting in the boat with someone better than you and letting them go to work, watching what it is that they do and how they do it, and asking questions. What's up, Derek? Asking questions about, hey, why did we even go to this spot? What's going on with this? What's going on with that? What kind of line are you using? Why are you casting over there as opposed to over there? There's so many ways to gain insight as far as what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it. And you just got to ask that person, right? So we basically got to swallow the ego and be prepared to be put to the test, right? And just have patience that day. Watch that guy, watch what they're doing. Now, one of the things that I did this year, like I was saying previously, I took a dude under my wing, and we got to work, man. We fished a ton together. And so I would say this much. When I took him out, a lot of times he would get super frustrated with me. So a lot of times what would happen is he would get really frustrating with me. I would go out with him, and I would get on scope, and I would just zoom like as fast, like 40 miles per hour. This dude fishes way slower than me. And so what we did is we talked a lot about pattern recognition, right? Just walking him through the process of why we're there, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why this works way better than something else that he maybe would do. And a lot of times what I did is, I was trying to get him to be better than me, or maybe not better than me, but I was trying to get him to grasp my style of fishing, so that when he goes with me, he understands like what to expect. He understands that like we're not going to be, even though we see, blobs, like every single blob that we see or every single mark that we see on live scope, every single time we see that, guess what? We don't have to throw at it. We don't have to throw at every single fish that we see. We don't have to do that. And so pattern recognition was key. Now, when I would explain my approach, or the way that I like to approach an area, right? A lot of times, again, I would ask them, hey, what would you do when you pull up to this spot? And we get some good dialogue going back and forth as to why. And me being the teacher, I'll tell you guys something, I would get it wrong, because fishing is extremely trial and error. It's something that we got to get used to, and you're constantly testing the water as to what's going to work and what's not going to work. And sometimes you're wrong, or most of the time you're wrong. So sometimes the fish would make me look like a hero, and sometimes the fish would just make me look confused because I couldn't catch them. So the biggest thing I would say is you need to understand, when it comes to getting better, is the guys that you're around, are they better than you? Can you learn from them and get in the boat with them? Now, I don't have a ton of buddies within the fishing industry. My circle is extremely small. I have gotten in the boat with quite a few other guys, but not on like I would say not on a learning capacity, more on a casual capacity, right? But I did sit there and I watched them very, very closely as to what they were doing, how they were doing it. And, when you don't know somebody really good, sometimes like things are just kept a little bit more discreet, and you might not understand or know why. But if you ask them why, a lot of times guys will tell you, especially if you're in an individual or like on a more personal capacity, just a one-on-one capacity with them. But one thing that I noticed is that even when I fish with guys that I don't know really well, they're going to feed you some breadcrumbs, but at the end of the day, they're not going to give you the entire sandwich, right? They're just going to give you bits and pieces of why. And you kind of have to put all those pieces together yourself. Now, how do I get better at fishing? I think that the biggest thing for me was I made a mistake in trying to get good at everything. I wanted to be good at flipping. I wanted to be good at punching. I wanted to be good at frogging and doing all the whole deal like that. I tried to just do it all at once and become a super well-rounded angler. I personally think that I made a mistake doing that. And you can disagree if you want to. Definitely drop a comment below if you disagree with this. But I think taking it step by step, getting good at scoping, getting good at scoping, getting good at finesse fishing, and then kind of breaking everything down from there and kind of digressing, right? And going backwards. I think that, learning this stuff in an individual, like compartmentalizing it and getting good at one thing and then getting good at another thing and then getting good at another thing is far more beneficial. Now, it does depend on why are you trying to get good at fishing? Are you trying to guide? Do you just want to be better? Are you trying to tournament fish? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And then that should kind of tell you of which avenue to go. Now, the best avenue to getting in the boat with new people or getting in the boat with people that are better than you is to obviously join a bass fishing club. Join a club. They're typically super cheap. It depends on what kind of club you join, but a lot of times, you literally can just hop into, you Google or go on your Minnesota bass fishing pages and just check and see. In Minnesota, we're really fortunate. We have a Facebook group called Minnesota Bass Heads, and on Minnesota Bass Heads, a lot of the guys are pretty generous in there. A lot of guys are pretty nice. And if you just go on there and post, I'm looking for a bass club to jump into, you'll get 1,000 replies saying, hey, join this bass club. We have openings or whatever. Bass clubs are looking for co-anglers all the time. It's like a dying thing. And I think that that's very evident if you just look at the opens. Look at the opens, dude. They quit doing co-angling. So co-angling is definitely a great way to get better at the sport. And it's a great way to meet new people in fishing and learn new techniques and maybe make new friends or whatever that you can go out and fish with more frequently and just keep on learning and learning and learning. Now, if there's one thing that I remember really good, it was when me and Brandon, the dude that I'm talking about, when we first started fishing together. When we first started fishing together, bro, I didn't realize how much shit you do like on an everyday basis that just becomes more of a routine that some people just don't understand. And I guess I even learned that guiding even too. I can't tell you guys, and I don't want to knock my clients too hard because I have some great clients and great people that back my business up. But I'll tell you this much. Fishing experience is a matter of perspective, and you hear it all the way. Like some guys will say that they are so good, they get in your boat and you start to figure out slowly but surely that they're maybe not as good as what they thought they were. So skill level is a matter of perspective. It's a matter of how you view the sport, and it's a matter of how much of the sport you viewed. I can elaborate on that. So like if you constantly watch the Elite Series and you're constantly around a good group of anglers, like odds are your idea of what a really good angler is different than a guy that has never watched the Bassmaster Elite Series, doesn't watch tournament fishing, just kind of fishes with the homies, fishes from shore when he gets a chance at the dam, you know, that kind of guy, the more casual guy. That dude, yeah, he's catching big fish and he catches them all the time, and he probably is using shiner minnows. But that dude's perspective is, hey man, I catch big fish, so I'm a really good fisherman. I've definitely viewed that through that lens. Before I started bass fishing more competitively at the club level, I thought I was the shit, dude. I thought I was so good because I could go out and catch a good bag dang near every single trip. And so in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm pretty damn good. I can catch them. And then obviously the tables change once you start to get around better anglers, or, you know, you join that bass club where, you know, you're around these guys that are actually are good and actually can catch them. Right. So, you know, your perspective of what a good angler is and what a bad angler is all based on your experiences. So, you know, you always want to take that with a grain of salt. Now, when it came to this year, spending that time around Brandon, I'd say that one of the biggest drawbacks for me is constantly having to remind myself of that experience level and trying to accommodate to it. Right. However, I will say this, helping him or maybe mentoring him in a sense, it made me better because it really made me lock in some of the stuff that I was teaching him that I might be too lazy to do. Right. I think that the best way to look at this is look at your skill level. So I'm just going to start with like your average skill level, like the club guys, right? Your club guys that fish, maybe they fish competitively. I would say that your experience level is either average or maybe just a little bit above average, right? Now, when we're speaking on that capacity, I would say this much. The little things, man. If you are at an average skill level, and that's what I would say that I am just barely above average over the years, right? Been doing this for a little while now. I would say that I'm a little bit above average. And so some of the things that I've learned over the years is you fix the things that you can control 100%. Like you fix the shit that you can control, and you cannot be lazy about things. You need to do your due diligence. So I'll give you guys an example. A 3-foot or a 2-foot leader on a spinning rod, cut that thing off and tie a new one. Nicks in the fluorocarbon, understanding to check that if you're fishing around rock all the time. These are just little controllables. I call them controllables. I don't know. That might be a made up word or some shit. But I would say that checking your line, that is something that you can control. Hooks, dude, check your hooks. If you've been flipping with the same hook and you got snagged in a rock and you're fishing a derby, odds are cut that thing off, throw away the 80 cents or whatever it is that you paid for that hook, throw that thing in the garbage and tie on a new one. These are controllables. And I think that that's stuff that we just don't think about in the moment. We just kind of take that kind of little stuff for granted. And then when you step back to set the hook on a big one, you freaking lose them or you break off. And that's just because of negligence, pure, plain and simple. So one of the ways that you can become better is just due diligence on the water, doing and taking care of everything that you can control. The next thing that I suggest, and I don't think that this works, it's not a universal principle, but it's something that I've learned personally throughout the time. Now, if you fished with me, in the past few years, you'd understand that when you first, at the very beginning, my very first bass boat that I bought, when you get in my boat, bro, it was a fucking disaster. It was just totally brutalized. And my level of organization was almost slim to none. I would just throw shit everywhere. It looked like a bomb went off in my tackle box. You'd open up my to-go container or my go box or whatever, my top box, and there'd be cigarette butts in there. There'd be old, nasty, rusty hooks and just shit laying around everywhere. Open up my plastic bags. Nothing was organized. It was just a big heaping pile of shit. Now, I promise you guys something right now. I became so much more efficient on the water, just harnessing that principle of trying to stay clean and organized and this and that. Um, if you know me on a more personal level, like you know that like my house, my truck, everything like that, I like to keep it very clean and organized. And like your boat should be no different. Um, one thing that I realized is that I have way more time to fish when my boat's more organized and everything is put where it's supposed to be. And I know where it's at. I get more time to fish. I'm stressed out way less. And I just am way more efficient on the water. I know you guys probably thought that like I was going to have some crazy ass secrets as far as how do you get better. These are super obvious things, but it's shit that no one does, I promise you, or it's stuff that people just aren't thinking about. Fishing in my mind is, and I hate jumping around all over the place, but this is a super broad topic. So I'll try and hone in on one thing. But one thing that I would say is that as far as these little things go, these little details, it all adds up into one. So we're talking hundreds of variables, you know, organization, just having a clean boat, line tying, knots that you tie, all this stuff. These are all just a ton of little variables. And I know that like if we look at it on a percentage totem pole, they each are about this. Sorry, they're like this, right? And if the totem pole is like this, we have all these little micro variables that add up to, you know, a complete either a successful day or a failed day. Now, bass fishing, we do it all the time. We all know about it. Guess what? Bass fishing is just super uncertain in itself. It's really hard. There's so much shit that we cannot control, like the weather and whether the fish are going to bite, if they're pressured or not. So I would say that the stuff that we can actually take and we can control, we need to do that. That's like of the most important thing to think about when you're out on the water is what can I control, how I can control it, and what can I control? How can I control it? And then the stuff that I can't control, when the bad shit happens behind that, guess what? It makes it so much easier to deal with and manage in the moment, right? In the moment. We can't control our equipment breaking. You know, well, maybe we can to a certain degree, but we can't control if our trolling motor just blows up or if our big motor blows up. Um, just imagine, just imagine having that all that stuff, that catastrophic stuff happen, and then on top of that you can't catch them. The level of stress. And one thing that I've noticed is that when I get super stressed out, I do not make the greatest decisions as far as choosing a spot to go to, knowing when to leave a spot, you know, all that kind of stuff. My timing gets way off, the rhythm gets way off, and I tend to kind of spin wheels after that. So, you know, controlling all this stuff is super important. Now, here's where like we get into more of the other stuff. And I would say this much. What's up, Steven? One of my favorite ways to actually get better at fishing. So if this is going to be for your guys that are a little bit more experienced, right? One of my favorite ways of getting better at fishing is waiting until big tournaments or, you know, big tournaments in comparison to the size of the lakes, go out and fish them, right? You need to take your ass out to those lakes after the field has been out there and get an idea of what that does to the fish and how those fish behave, especially if you have prior experience on that lake. So if you're from the Brainerd area, let's just use like a lake like Gull Lake, for example. Gull Lake is a largemouth factory. It's got a pretty good smallmouth population in it, and there are bigger tournaments that get fished on that lake. You want to see where you're at as far as your experience level goes for finding fish. Guess what? That is a perfect opportunity to go out and see what happens. What does pressure actually do to these bass, especially if you already understand the lake? Go out and see what does pressure actually do to these fish? How can I combat after 50 dudes have been out here fishing? How do I combat this? And I would say that you'll find that you will catch them like you won't catch them near as good as what you do on a Wednesday afternoon when there's been no pressure out on the water. And I would say this much. Man, like take a look take a look at Mille, for example. Mille is probably my favorite lake to pick on. Dude, look at the pressure out there, bro. Look at the pressure out there. And I literally go out there almost every other day. You know, in the summertime, it's 4 days a week, 5 days a week. When you're going out there all the time, you get a really keen sense of what's going on. And I see fish change positioning. I've watched boat traffic or fishing pressure completely change a spot inside and out and make the fish completely evade it. So I've also seen it to where fish will purposely leave an area. They'll get out of an area because of fishing pressure, and they might not ever go back to it. I've seen that happen too. So a great way to test your fishing location, your fish locating skills, is to go out after a big tournament and see what you can come up with, how the fish moved out, how the fish moved around, how that pressure actually moved these fish around. It's absolutely insane. And you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot about that. And the idea of live scope behind this, and you mix live scope with the knowledge that you already have and go out on a mission like that. Now you've created someone dangerous, because now you can see not just the location of fish, and you're not just testing by trial and error by throwing your bait out. Now you can actually see, right? You go out there and you start to notice the fish behavior changes completely. Maybe they're not chasing baits like they were when you're usually out there. Now you've realized that the pressure has completely changed the mood of these fish. Now they're not wanting to chase. Now they're wanting to do X, Y, and Z. Before they were doing A, B, and C. Now they're doing X, Y, and Z. I can see that on scope. Now I know how to approach a fish that's more pressured. So, you know, as far as getting better from that standpoint goes, that to me, for a more average or above average angler, I think that that's one of the best ways to really dial in your skill as far as your fish locating skills go, and as far as bait selection goes and pattern recognition. You know, understanding that, hey, these fish are just following my bait. They're not even committing to it. They follow it for 5 feet and then they turn off and they swim away, right? These are all just things that you can learn. And I think that with pressured fish, this is by far the best way to do it, is to go out after a tournament. So pressured fish, live scope, tournament fished lake with preferably the most pressure possible. You get out there and you can really test your skill level, right? Now, the best thing that I think, as far as if I was talking to a guy that has really minimal experience, right? If you're in the chat right now and you feel like you kind of suck, I'll tell you guys something. All right. I want to put this out there, that the best way to me is you go out to your favorite lakes, right? The lakes that are not pressured, the lakes where you caught your PB out of with a wacky worm, and you start learning these lakes. But what you do is, instead of going to the spots, you start looking for little subtle differences and try to find a new areas on these smaller lakes. Smaller lakes are way easier to dial in than bigger lakes. But you go out to these smaller lakes, you find these little secrets on these little lakes. What that does is it teaches you to think outside the box. So I'll give you guys an example. There's a little lake in my hometown that I like to fish, or it's by my hometown that I like to fish. And this lake, it only has like one main point coming off of it, and it's fairly obvious, right, that that's there. When I first went there, I caught a really good bag off that main point. And I kept on thinking, there's no freaking way. There's no way that this is the only spot that these fish are. So I took a lap around the lake, and needless to say, lo and behold, I found a freaking really sweet rock pile off in the middle of nowhere. If you looked at the map just shows it being flat. The contours are really gradual. They're not super stacked. And so you would not see depth there or depth change. It literally looks like just a flat sand spot, right? And so I go and I take a lap with side imaging, and on the third lap that I take, and guys, this isn't a very big lake, On the third lap that I take, all of a sudden it just glows on side imaging a freaking rock pile like that on a 12-inch screen. My eyes got about this big. It was in the perfect depth. I pulled up to that thing and there were so many big fish on this spot. I don't even know if that fish like had gotten fish prior to me finding it, to be honest, because there were so many there. And I took and I Jim Moyna'd those things, man. I took a football jig and went to work with those fish. And actually, the best part about that is that, especially for the novice guy, if this happens for you, right, this situation, one big factor that I learned about that area was I got to test out new baits. I got to go and I got to test out some of my new stuff. I got to test out some theories that I had and some ideas that I had, and I got to be a little bit more creative. And so for the guys that are in that novice zone, I think that like stay on lakes that are like really know like what you're up against, right? Really know when you go to a unpressured body of water, understand that lake, like understand that you are catching them primarily because nobody freaking goes there. And you are one of the few people that go there. And understand that when you learn all of this stuff on that body of water, you can take that, go to a more pressured body of water and test out that theory, right? Look, man, everybody goes out to these smaller lakes, they get their cool pictures and they catch their big bags and they think that they are the hero. When realistically, that's not the case. They're just they tapped into an area that just has not seen a lot of baits. And understanding the differences between that, I think makes for a way like better angler or better rounded angler in the future, right? I think that you gain the right type of insight versus me. When I first started bass fishing, I never really put that together. I never really thought of it like that. I would go to a small lake around the house, catch like 18, 19 pounds, think I was the deal, and just ride away in the sunset with my head held high, thinking, damn, I did so good today. And I'm probably the best angler in the state, which is totally false, right? It's totally false. And I think some of us have gone there. Some of us have gone that route and we've realized it as time went on. And some of us we didn't learn, right? There was nobody here to tell us that. So I would tell you guys this much. Definitely have that in the blinders that, hey, where I'm going is not pressured, where I'm going is pressured. And that's going to save you some time. So now is the fun part, is where I'm at right now, skill level wise, how do I get better at bass fishing now where I'm at? And I think that this is like, I think that this is one of those situations for me personally. Like one of my plans next year is just to be more creative and try different things. When you're at the landing and you're talking to that guy, right, that just kicked your ass because you're like, you roll up, you're talking to this guy and you get the dreaded question. I see some lax all the time because when I pull up to the landing, boy, there's like fucking 15 people always sitting up there. So when I pull up to the landing, I know that people are probably going to know who I am and they're going to be like, hey, how did you do out there? And it's just the dreaded day when you're just like, oh, it sucked. And then you hear them say, oh, we caught the living shit out of them. Look, it's going to happen to everybody. And it's happened to me. It's going to happen to everybody. Where was I going with this? It comes down to, like, for me, I want to get more open-minded. So when I go up to the landing and I talk to all these people, one thing that you realize is that everybody someplace, someone caught them today. And that going in. And so if you can keep that, and I keep that in my mind pretty much the entirety of the time that I'm out on the water. And that's what kind of keeps me going, is like, hey, this dude over here is probably catching them most likely. For me personally, I have to have more of an open mind. I have to try more baits. I have to try more things. And I really need to start paying way more attention to my forward facing sonar to understand fish behavior. If there's one thing, and one thing that I could teach anybody, period, it's to really pay attention to live scope, understand what scoping does, and understand that it's not just checking to see if the fish are biting or not. It's understanding the behavior of that fish and understanding its relationship and how it's interacting with the bait. If you throw a bait out and this fish is all over it, and it's following that far behind it, guess what? Dude, that fish liked that bait. There's just something very minimal or minuscule that makes that fish not commit to it. And it's not even might, there's possibly the smallest tweak that you can do to it. So I'm going to give you an example, okay? So I don't want to use minnow fishing, but I'm going to have to. So minnow fishing on Mille Lacs this year. Dude, I pretty... No, they're not. Swanberg, use a Snoopy pole. Like, bring it back, bro. Bring the Snoopy pole back. Let's go. Sorry to get off track. So, minnow bait and live scope is probably key. Now I throw the bait out, right? Now this is a scenario. I'll reiterate the scenario. So I'm out on the water and I'm throwing a minnow bait out. I watch this fish and he is literally following it. And when I'm sitting here twitching it, as soon as he got on the tail of it, I freaking increased it. Like I turned it up like as fast as I could, right? Went from 5 to 10. As I was doing that, that fish even got hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. And he followed it literally up to the trolling motor. Like literally, like as soon as I started raising the bait up, he just dove and came up. Now, he didn't commit. He didn't bite. Do I go slower? Do I go even faster? Or do I change the presentation up? So guess what? Throw out again. The fish, I tried doing it slower. Like I even was twitching it. And then as soon as he got on top of it, I just stopped it and let it sit off the bottom and just kind of went and would wait. And he would follow it up and then go right back down and nose on it. And then I'd flip it up just a little bit. Boom, he would do the same thing. That is super irritating, right? It irritates me. So guess what? Reel the bait in, change. I can't remember what I was using. It was a bigger bait, but I changed and I dropped down to like a 3-inch minnow. And as soon as I threw that 3-inch minnow on there, dude, I'm telling you, I moved it maybe 20 feet in at a really fast pace, and he didn't even hesitate. He just came in and boom, ate it. Okay. Now that right there is fishing with more of an open mind. Okay. Now there's several different approaches to this. All right. It's understanding the efficiency piece to this too. There is an efficiency piece, but when you're out there just on a learning capacity, learning by yourself, and you don't have anybody bothering you, the best thing to do to dial in that fish behavior is to do just that. Fish with an open mind, be creative. If the fish aren't following the bait, stay on that same specific fish, stay on him as long as he's not acting leery, and throw different baits at him and see if you can get him to bite. Now, the biggest mistake that you can make is making that just a habit, that this is something I do every single time that I see a fish. Every single time I see a fish, I try every bait in my tackle box and this and that. Big mistake. All right. And the reason why is because how many fish are out there swimming around? Now, this is just a way for you to gauge fish behavior in the entire lake. Right. So I came to this understanding a lot, like probably 2 years ago. I was talking to a buddy about this, and Rob Tolley. Yes, we're in Minnesota, Rob. I was talking to a buddy about this, and it made sense to him. Actually, So I'm talking to my buddy about this, and man, one thing that I will say, and I stand behind this, is that fish are individuals. All right, they are. Like smallmouth, especially. Largemouth, I'm not going to speak on them things because I don't scope them very often. Oftentimes I'm flipping for them, but I would say smallmouth are individuals, dude. They're super curious creatures, and they're very much like a squirrel. They're very much like a squirrel. If I could compare, if I had any way to compare smallmouth behavior, they are like a damn squirrel. They can be very, very, very fast paced, and they can be extremely lethargic. But regardless of how lethargic they are, I have watched them things behave like the water is 70 degrees in 37-degree water. I've watched them just freak out, and all of a sudden they gain some energy and they're on your bait like this. And so every smallmouth is going to be different. I feel like all of their moods are different. Yes, you can fire up a school. Yes, you can turn a whole school negative and you can make them not trust you. You can be associated with danger to those fish. However, those fish in my mind are all different, right? That's why at some times you'll get like 5 fish following it, 2 fish drop off, but 3 fish are just on that thing. And then all of a sudden one goes and bites it. So all of them are a little bit different. So when you are smallmouth fishing and you're scoping them, my way of troubleshooting and going through it through the motions faster than normal is I give the fish one toss, right? Give him one toss with the bait and I watch his behavior on it. And if I go to the next fish and he does the same, he has the same type of behavior, then I would almost pattern it. If I see that 3, 4, 5, 6 times, then it definitely is, that's pattern recognition time. A lot of the fish are acting the same exact way, right? Now we need to change something up. So as far as fish being individuals, I've watched this. So I have had a school of 3, 4 smallmouth, and they are all extremely negative. And I'll be sitting there working my minnow. I'll drop the minnow down, right? I'll have them following the minnow for like 40 feet, and then I drop the minnow down to see if I can cause a reaction bite. They all start to swim away. I go to reel the bait in, and one just freaks out and starts following it and bites it, right? You triggered the mood of that one fish, right? They're all individual, and all 3 of them were headed back, but the one fish, you just happen to get lucky and trigger his little reaction. Now, I see this a lot just being on Mille. A lot of times, like, for example, I have my clients fish boulders a lot. I have my client throw a Ned rig over on a boulder. He's sitting there working it. I have them do this all the time with the Ned rig. I'll have them just wind it 3, 4 winds super fast with the spinning pole, and then I just have them drop it. Dude, I can't tell you guys. It's not, obviously it's not 10 for 10, but I cannot tell you guys how many times they just look at me and they're like, I'm hooked up. That worked. I can't believe that worked. I've never done that before. You triggered that fish's mood. That fish, and even though there's more than just that one fish on the boulder, for whatever reason, you triggered that one fish's mood. So they're all individual fish. Like, start looking at it like that, and you can see just a little bit more, or you can gain just a little bit more insight a little bit faster and increase the fish catches, right? Because that's what we're trying to do. Now, I could go on and on about this forever, but I would say this much: use scope as a tool, right? And use it, try to get efficient with it. To me, whenever I'm out on like Mille is my best example. Whenever I'm out on Mille, I have this feeling in my head, or the saying in my head, that the more fish that I can put baits in front of, the better odds I have of catching them. You know, a new fish is just a new project and I can get them to bite, right? If I just sit on top of the same fish and sit there and throw everything I got at him and he is not biting, that's a major problem. Another thing that I really try to avoid, and I don't know, like, we're going to actually walk through this scenario together, like all of us, all 2 of us. So one thing that I think that I could get better at is throwing at more stuff. I pass up a lot of stuff that I see in the water column. And one thing that I learned after last year was sometimes I would see stuff on the bottom and it would kind of look like fish, but I couldn't tell if there were rocks or not. I would throw my bait over the top of it, and I would get it like 4 or 5 feet over the top of that stuff that looked like structure. And all of a sudden I'd see the entire bottom come up and just bite, right? Now, I would say that in an environment like Mille, it's definitely worth it to do it, because LiveScope has pushed these fish around in so many different places that now I see more fish roaming just out on a freaking rock flat. I see more fish roaming than what I ever have over the years. So definitely something that I'm going to work on a little bit is throwing on some more stuff and then tracking my bait on more casts. I'm really old school. So Me being a little bit more old school, I'm pretty comfortable fishing without live scope. Like, maybe I should rephrase that. I am getting less and less comfortable fishing without live scope. But when I get upset and I'm trying to turn it up, I kind of forget that it's there and I just start going to work, right? I'm trying to change that a little bit, and I'm trying to get better at just fishing in the moment, understanding that I got to follow these casts and follow the casts per cast, right? Every single cast I should follow with my live scope, because that's going to give me the clearest illustration of what is happening out on the water. It's going to give me the clearest illustration. It's going to give me the best. It's going to give me the best insight for cause and outcome, right? So trying to follow more casts with live scope is going to be key. That's how it's going to make me a better fisherman, I think. But I think for the guy that is just starting out or more of a novice angler, I think that could be to your detriment. I think that throwing at everything that you see is a terrible habit to get into until you start understanding what the marks look like and you understand fish behavior. So we could get on and on, but guys, we're going to go through the chat. So I'm going to pull up both the Facebook chat and the YouTube chat, and I'll see what we have for questions. It's already been, dude, I talk. I can't believe it's been 51 minutes. If you've ever spent time in the boat with me, you would know I don't really shut up very often. Like, I almost talked the entire trip. I'm sure it annoys the F out of guys. All those questions would drive a bunch of guys crazy. Yeah, so I'm guessing that's Dave Karp. What's up, Dave? Thanks for watching, bro. Look, man, it's part of our job. Like, I would say this much. One of the reasons why I got into guiding is I do like teaching the sport. I'm terrible with kids. I don't really like them that much, but I do take them out from time to time. I have an age limit, right? I have a specific threshold. I have a specific threshold that I'm willing to teach. And then anything lower than that, I leave it to the guys with patience. But no, it doesn't drive me crazy. As a matter of fact, it tells me that you're here to learn, right? And honestly, Dave, I'll tell you this much. For me personally, I like a guy that asks questions versus a guy that tells me that they know, and they know everything and that they can't do anything wrong. Those are the guys that drive me nuts. Eric Ahlstrom. The Jim Moyna gave me the best advice. He said, enter as a co-angler in a club to fish with different people and learn techniques. Also enter individual tournaments to develop the decision-making skills. Bro, I could not agree with that more. FY, that's kind of funny. I mentioned Jim Moyna in the podcast, and he's like, he was mentioned in the chats. Weird. Anyways, though, I couldn't agree with that more. Tournament fishing is an entire different ball game than fun fishing or guiding. It's completely different. That's what separates the men from the boys, in my opinion. If you guys are wondering, big wave, bro. Come on. No Busch Light over here. I'm not talking shit on Busch Light. Busch Light's a great beer. Great beer. I only like drinking it out of a bottle. I'm not really big on the cans. I'm not that redneck. However, guess what? I'm switching over to Big Wave. Like, I like Big Wave. It's a little spendier, but I'm into Big Wave, and I bought cans because they were on sale. And because of that, we got to put it in a glass. I'm kind of bougie like that, though. I'm a little bougie like that. But yeah, man, tournament fishing very much different than just going out and have a good time. But if you're on the tournament avenue and you want to get better, I couldn't agree with that more. And I think that when you get to the point to where you're making your decisions on your own, it's either good or bad. Some people need validation for their decision. Some people don't. Some people don't give a shit. I personally, I would think that, yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I would think that would probably be the best way to do it. That's a guide. His answers are, you just do this, you just do that. Oh, And when I do ask my friend, that's a guide. His answers are, you just do this, you just do that. Next question. I wanted to find educational type guides and book a monthly trip amongst them. Right here, bro. Dave says, I want to hire a guide, but bring them into my boat. And he emphasizes the word my. Maybe they can see and help dial my world in. Dave, I would love to do that with you. Dude, we've been trying to do a guide trip for the last like 5 years, bro. Let's do it. Let's do it this next year. Rob Tolley, you in Minnesota? Yeah, bro. And he's asking me, do you fish Mille Lacs a lot? Bro, I'm a guide out there. I probably scan out there 80 to 100 hours a year. That's right. 80 to 100 hours per season I have side imaging out there. No, I have not side imaged the whole lake, but I'm pretty damn close. I'm pretty damn close, excluding the mud flats. That's what's next. Mud flats, watch out. That's what's probably next. Thoughts on Humminbird Lake Master chips versus Garmin? Who is that from? Race Handberg? If that's your real name, bro, that's badass. So I'm biased. All right. I've nothing against, like, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I'll just tell you this much. I think as far as your console unit goes, Garmin is dog shit. I really do. I think that Garmin is definitely a dog shit console unit to have. I do not like it. I think that they are not user friendly. I don't think that the imaging is so good to the point to where you would want to leave your Humminbird interface to go to that because it is better. All right. I think that they're not user friendly. I think the mapping sucks. The mapping drives me crazy on those things. I've been around them. I've probably been around them for like, I don't know, 12, 15 hours or so. And I just am not impressed with them at all. I think that they are just not a great unit. I've seen some of the higher end ones, and the imaging is great and everything, but just not a fan. As far as live scope goes, though, yes, dominates it. Like Keys to the Castle dominates it. And I will say that Lowrance, if you were looking at Garmin and you were looking to get away from Humminbird, I would say before you get a Garmin, look into the Lowrance HDSs. They are by far king of the castle to me. I am more of a Lowrance guy than I am a Humminbird guy, but I definitely would say that before I would look at Garmin, before I would look at Garmin mapping versus Humminbird mapping. And I mean, Garmin and Lowrance use the same mapping. Sorry, man. I didn't realize it was specific to the mapping. So yes, when it comes to mapping, Humminbird or Lake Master versus Garmin, dude, Lake Master all the way. And bro, I don't know where you are. So I have no idea where you live at. But if you live in the upper Midwest, Lake Master dominates all the way. Yeah, bro, if you're from Iowa, Lake Master dominates all the way. Definitely go Lake Master, dude. You're not going to regret that decision. You're not going to regret that decision at all, bro. Definitely go that route. All right, we're going to jump into Facebook. Not a ton. No problem, bro. All right, Connor. Your typing skills are on point right there. Derek, I grew up fishing with the best in the state. Good for you, bro. I wish I did. My buddy Connor, he comments, you can learn a lot from a guy that is necessarily better than you just in the way they approach some things or baits they fish. Sorry, let me do this again. You can learn a lot from a guy that is necessarily better than you just in the way they approach some things or baits they fish. Opens a guy's mind on how many ways you can skin a cat. I totally agree with that. Like one of the things that I noticed when I fished with Connor has a way different idea of how to scan and look at a spot versus me. And it just opens up my mind. I find myself like one of the things that I learned from Connor, because Connor's a way better largemouth fisherman than me, even though he has a way faster pace than me, it feels like he dissects the information at a way slower rate and a more thorough rate. Does that make sense? That probably sounds like dog shit, but it's true. Like that's the best way that's honestly the best way that I can describe it. That dude, in the moment of fishing, he fishes faster. He flips faster than me. He covers water just a little bit faster than me when it comes to largemouth fishing. He covers water actually, like it feels like he's going like 300 miles per hour compared to my normal speed. But it's like it's like he's moved, like I don't know how to explain it. It's like he dissects the information, he goes through it just thoroughly and slower than me and takes his time with it. I know that's hard to that's really hard to conceptualize. That's a really poor way of explaining it, but that's the best way that I got. Keep in mind, I have like a 5th grade education. Keep in mind. I apologize about that. Definitely way better ways. Nathan Skinlian, what's up, bro? Swanberg, what's up? Connor, high school tournaments get won off areas that you would never guess because of pressure. I couldn't agree with that more, bro. Pressure moves fish around. Pressure moves the fish around, and again, we were just talking about it. You go out to a lake that just had a tournament, and you go and say you know that lake. Like I would say one of my most defining moments where I learned a lot of shit was after the MMBN trail when I went out there after they had just got done raping that place. Sorry, graping that place. That can get me banned from YouTube. We don't want to do that. When they were out there graping that place and they had like 50 or 70 teams out there, I went out there afterwards and dude, those fish were so messed up from it. It was super hard to get bit. And it was just hard to find them in general. I saw a lot of fish, more fish after that tournament than what I've ever seen, just literally out in the abyss roaming around. I hate telling you guys that. Hate it. Swanberg, are Snoopy Bowls underrated? What's the biggest fish you've caught on a kid's rod? Bro, I'll be honest with you, man. Never owned one. I grew up right into the Zebco 033 or whatever it was called. I grew up with the Zebco. I remember my dad would go to garage sales and buy like 15 fishing rods at a time, and he'd just leave them in the garage, and I would just pick from one of them. And that was kind of like my fishing setup growing up. So I didn't even start out with like a Ninja Turtle fishing pole or a G.I. Joe fishing pole. I don't know if they make those or not, but I never started out with any of that gimmicky shit. I just went straight up with Zebco and Shakespeare right off the gun, like right off the cut. My buddy Steven says location is imperative for mapping. I couldn't agree more. So, bro, my buddy from Iowa, I'll tell you this much. My buddy from Iowa, sorry, my cat was running up there. My buddy from Iowa, I'll tell you this much right now. Mapping, I agree with Steven when he says that location is imperative for mapping. Those lake masters are usually not very far off too when you're dropping dots. And let me preface this too. I would say this because I have run both Humminbird and Lowrance. I would say this much. Humminbird gets you the closest in comparison to your waypoint. So when I go and I drop a waypoint on side imaging, oftentimes it gets me exponentially closer than Lowrance does. I noticed it with Lowrance when I drop my waypoints on side imaging, I actually have to go back, and if I drop it through down imaging or I drop the waypoint as my boat's going over it and I just hit boom boom or like whatever those two buttons are, I hit that button and I drop that dot, it's actually way more accurate when I go that route than it is when I go any other route. Yeah, I agree, man. You know, and here's the thing. Maybe Steven can interact with this a little bit. Carter's saying Lake Master is more accurate for sure. Steven runs Garmin, or he used to when he still had his boat. You traitor, you freaking sold your boat, bro. You always got a boat up here to fish out of, Steven. You can always roll up to Minnesota and fish out of my boat. But maybe Steven can give us some insight on that while we're still on as to if that's true or not. I don't know. I'm just going to go up just a little bit more. Doesn't look like we missed anything. We'll check Facebook again one more time just to make sure I didn't miss anything. But boys, I appreciate you guys tuning in. We're going to be doing this as frequently as possible, and I want to get on a schedule so that we get people coming in and watching this, dude, because they're pretty fun to do. And unfortunately for you guys, I'm sorry if I get so off track. So I have a prompt that I make, and it's right here. Where'd it go? As you guys can see by this right here, I'm not very good at following it. Whoa, bro. Yeah, so I have a prompt that I keep on my other screen over here. And I tried it. I put it on there. No, don't, Loki. I put it on there so that I don't go off on these crazy rants because I'm really good at that. I can be long-winded. So I put it up there so I don't go on these super, super long rants. And sometimes, man, sometimes I go on these long rants and I get a little bit off track. So, and I do have like a super severe case of ADHD. Last thing that I want to touch on really quick, as far as how do you become a better angler? For me, and I would say, how do I become a better angler? One thing that I'm getting way better at is initially trusting my instincts. And I think that if you are an average angler, one thing that can really separate you from being average and being way above average is trusting your instincts. And I can tell you guys what I mean by that. Every tournament that I've fished, that's interesting. I'll read that in just a second, man. Every tournament that I've ever fished that I did really good in, I literally just had a gut feeling. And that's the truth. I literally had a gut feeling. And they were all team tournaments. And for the most part, it's like your partner looks at you and he's like, why do we even go here? And usually the answer is, I don't know. Usually the answer is, I don't really know, man. I didn't like have this crazy mathematical equation in my head that told me to do X, Y, or Z. It literally was just a feeling, and I went with my gut, and we got in there and we caught him good. I can tell you guys that absolutely 0 times this has happened to me where I had a gut feeling that I needed to get out of an area. I didn't go, and I stayed in the same area, and something great happened. That's happened 0 times. That's literally happened 0 times. Now, I can tell you a scenario where it works out, where you're fishing an area and in your head, you're like, I got to get out of here. This doesn't feel right. Dude, and I hop in the driver's seat and I roll out. I wouldn't say it's like probably 15% of the time, which in fishing, 15% is that's great odds, man. That's like Vegas over and under. That's huge. I would say that if you can capitalize on intuition 15% of the time, you're batting 1,000 in fishing. So it's definitely worked out for me many, 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 many times where I follow my gut, I follow my intuition, I go for it, and boom, next thing you know, I catch a fat sack. So, all right, boys. Oh, I'm going to read Steven's comment quick. You can select which unit pulls the GPS to get closer, similar to using a puck with birds. If you drop a dot at the console and don't have your bow unit set to pull from the same place, you will be off the distance from where the console and the bow units pull the location. Does that make sense to everybody? It doesn't make sense to me, but as long as it makes sense to everybody that's watching, like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make total sense to me, but I guess like I'm just reading it. And for me personally, I'm not a major perfect. I'm not a major tech guy, like not big time anyways. So anyways, drop some comments down below. What do you guys want to see? What do you guys want to see next week? We got New Year's Eve coming up. I already did my New Year's recap. I'm going to be working New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So I didn't think that I would be able to do a live show. But what do you guys want to see next Saturday and Sunday? Definitely drop a comment down below. Think of some topics that you guys want to watch. Guys, I got a whole deal that I'm going to be talking about, and I'll give you guys a little idea. So the first one, we already covered it, but tackle stuff. I'm going to be talking about, interesting. I'm going to be talking about some tackle stuff very, very soon. I'm going to have some solidified pricing that most likely, like, I shouldn't say solidified, I should say assumed pricing that's going to be. I'll talk a little bit about that. The up and coming Bassmaster Elite schedule. I don't really think that it's pertinent for me personally to get into the Bassmaster Elite stuff. I'm not like, I do watch the pros, I watch the opens, I watch the Elite Series, and I definitely watch MLF from time to time, but that has digressed quite a bit in the last couple of years, just based on, it's not that fun for me to watch anymore, man. I'm not that entertained by it. Like, it can be fun, but it's just something to have on in the background for me. I don't honestly care about it a ton. A little bit. I like it a little bit, but it's not like anything that I'm super crazy about. Yeah. I just don't think that the Elite Series is going to be like a major talking point for me. Now, the next thing that I'm going to be talking about, or one of the topics that I'm going to be talking about, not necessarily the next thing, and I'm going back and forth with this, is sleeper scoping baits. All right. I don't know. Like, should I leave it at that? That's the major question. Should I leave it at that? Or, do I want to talk about that? I have a bunch of baits that I scope with that I should probably give you guys the juice on. So I'm going to be talking about that. It's a pretty serious deal for a lot of people. The next topic that I got that I'm going to talk about is, well, it's not the next topic that I'm going to talk about, but one of the shows that we're going to have is, it's based around this. Most of the best fishermen on the planet, guys, do not fish bass tournaments. And that's not an opinion. That's actually fact. And it's basically because the ROI is too low, and the bragging rights and the cash that you can win, it isn't enough for them to compromise their spots. So, I kind of wish that there was more podcasts with guys like that I could have on my show and talk to, but just kind of a tough thing to do. It's kind of tough because fishing's based around secrecy. That's one thing that, like, is kind of, the fishing industry in itself is just a walking contradiction or dichotomy, because we want to keep everything so secret, but at the same time, we want views, we want clicks, we want people to view our content, we want to be educational. I'm sorry, Loki. At the same time, we want all that stuff. So we have to learn how to tease certain things, or how to give away something, but not give away too much, if you will. And I think that's kind of tough to cross paths with these guys that are really good. I know some of these guys too, personally. Some of these guys that fish just club tournaments are freaking good. I know one guy that's pretty damn good, that most likely, if he wanted to be a sellout and go fish the Elite Series, I'm pretty sure he would qualify like after year 2, most likely, after getting to learn it. Getting to learn the southern bodies of water. He's that freaking good. Another thing that we were going to talk about a little bit too was how to get ahead. And I think that yeah, I bet you do. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was how to get better at fishing without actually fishing. And YouTube is definitely one of the better places to do that. So we're not going to expand on that right now, but I have some ways where you can actually get better at fishing, and you don't have to be on the water. And we're going to talk about that in one of the shows coming up. But definitely drop something down below, man. Drop something in the chats if there's something that you guys want to see, if there's certain topics that you guys want to check out. And oh shit, I did forget too. I forgot to plug everybody. My bad. Guys, this show is brought to you guys by Ydes Appliances. Ydes Appliances. If you're in Brainerd, Minnesota, go support my buddy Keith Ydes. He owns Ydes Appliances. I've known Keith since we were this tall. If you can see, this is about 4 feet. Keith and I have been friends since we were damn near in middle school, and he's a great business owner, great guy, American patriot, and very much a supporting member of society. So show that guy some support. If you are a landlord, restaurant owner, any type of commercial, if you're in any type of commercial space in the Brainerd, Minnesota area that you are running appliances, what a dumbass, appliances, washers, dryers, refrigerators, stuff like that, dishwashers, definitely give Ydes Appliances a call for service calls for new or used equipment, new or used appliances. Definitely get a hold of him. This dude is a very reasonable guy. He's awesome. And again, you're supporting a local owned business that's owned by an actual local guy in the community. Great guy. Love the guy to death. This podcast is also, or this live stream is also sponsored by American Baitworks. Over at American Baitworks, we have the entire umbrella, like NetBait, which we just came out with the finicky lineup this year, and we also have the Hextech deal, which is, well, the Hextech deal is part of the finicky lineup. But I would say this much, man, as far as really cool tiny little smallmouth baits go, dude, in our finicky lineup, there's some stuff that I'm going to be showing. And I will say this much too. A lot of that stuff in the NetBait lineup, in the finicky lineup, dropped last year. And I was a little bit selfish, bro. Like, I just didn't want to show you guys some of the stuff that I was doing with some of these baits, because it is unreal, some of the fish that I caught with it and the way that some of these fish behave. Now, you guys can see, if you guys are seeing me do this a lot, check this out. My guy finally showed up. So say what's up, dude. So he usually will lay with me for hours up here and just chill and kind of watch me do my thing. So anyways, though, NetBait is definitely stepped up their game as far as with the finicky lineup goes with smallmouth. And then, of course, you got the Hextech lineup, the old school Hextech lineup with the Eco Shad, which is a great strolling bait. It's also a sleeper good Ned rig bait too. I bet you didn't know. Some flipping baits like, the Rascal. The Rascal is probably one of my favorite jig trailers, and it's definitely one of my favorite flipping baits. Slowly but surely, it's became that. It's a cross style bait, or actually like a creature style bait, if you will. And then the big bore. And I'm not going to tell you guys what I do with that quite yet. I know it's like a tube looking bait. We'll get into that next show or whatever. But yeah. And Halo rods. Of course, Halo rods makes a very, I would say, very high quality rod. I like Halo rods. Been basically rocking the HFX series and the BB series. The BB series technique specific rods are the deal. I have no problem saying this. No problem at all. You guys need to go out and check out the NetBait the Halo Rods BB series jerkbait rod. You will not regret it. And I won't say some of the better jerkbait rods on the market, but it is very comparable. And it's literally like some of the jerkbait rods that I've seen. My old jerkbait rod that I used was like a $400 rod. Bro, I'm telling you this much right now. You do not need to go spend that $400. You do not have to do that, dude. Our BB series rod is the shit. You got to go check it out, man. You got to go check it out. It's one of my favorite rods. And then the other rod that's slowly becoming my favorite rod for jigging, and it like football jig, flipping, open water finesse football jigs, dude. The BB series jig rod is the deal. And I definitely, Swanberg, if you're watching, I need a couple more. Like, I definitely need a couple more of those jig rods. And I'm guessing that you could do some other things with it that I haven't done yet. But those two rods, man, are just BB series rod, BB series jerkbait rod, and BB series jig rod, which is a casting rod. Both are casting rods. Sweet freaking blanks. Sweet blanks. Go check them out. But I will say this much. This is tough for me. I like to be in bed by like 8:30, 9-ish. And right now it's 9:30. And I've been staying up pretty late lately, like 10:20 or something like that. It's pretty crazy for me, for this guy. I like waking up at like 4. 4 is probably my favorite time to wake up. So anyways, boys, it was great hanging with you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in to the live stream. I appreciate it. Next Saturday and Sunday, we'll be back on again. I started off with lofty goal. We're going to do like 4 a week. Not going to happen. We'll do like 2 a week. And they're most likely going to be on weekends. That's when we get the most viewership. So until next time, boys, tune in. We'll see you guys on the next stream. Oh. Thanks for watching, fellas.